On this video, I'm going to share with you, among other things, the moment that I thought a fully grown male leopard might actually go for me. And just for a split second, my life flashed before my eyes.
It's looking at you, don't do that.
Yeah, no, okay. I don't want to do that. Oh gosh. See, am I alright?
CJ, are you okay?
Aside from that, I'm just going to share with you an incredible trip to the bush in South Africa. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers, and if you get value from the channel, then please hit subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. Now this is a rugby channel, I accept, and for the most part it's rugby content that's on the channel. However, I tried to do much more than rugby on my recent trip, on my first ever trip to South Africa, and I wanted to get under the skin of the Springboks, of the rugby culture there, and I think I did a good job of it. But I think I did quite a good job as well of understanding the country more generally, including my first ever trip to the African bush, and that is where I'm taking you on this video. Yeah, so here are some of my encounters with nature and wildlife, and it definitely puts the wild into wildlife when you're in Africa. And I don't think it's over the top to say that this was a life-changing experience. My mind was completely blown. I cannot wait to see the look on my children's faces when I take them back. I'm definitely taking my family back to experience this again. Anyway, I'll get to all of that. Of course, my journey started in South Africa in Krugersdorp for Craven week, a week before South Africa played Ireland in that first test in Pretoria, and I had a lovely bush-shaped hole in my itinerary. So it was only a short journey, 1 hour flight north from Johannesburg to Hoedspruit. Completely different climate though. Suddenly it was very hot, even in the middle of winter, and it had been very dry, and I've been told that that time of year is a good time to see animals because the bush is a bit thinner. How true those words turned out to be. I stayed at River Lodge, the Simbavati property on the Timbavati private game reserve, and I'll tell you what, rather than describing it, why don't I show you what I saw as soon as I arrived. I got to River Lodge and I was being given my briefing as a new guest. My bags had been unloaded. I was stood there at reception looking around, and then the member of staff that was giving me my briefing said, "Tell you what, Tim, we can do this in a minute. Why don't you go and have a look at the view?" And they'd obviously spotted over my shoulder what I then went and saw. The very first thing I saw at River Lodge was this. Check this out. Literally just arrived. Wow. There are some moments and some feelings that you have in your life that you just want to kind of bottle and relive them again. And this was one of those. To see this within seconds of having arrived, I probably should have guessed that it was going to be a bit like this, because I'll tell you what, coming from the airport on the tarmac road that heads out into the game reserve, within a couple of minutes of leaving Hoedspruit Airport, I saw this. Yeah. Haven't even got there. Haven't even arrived. So special, actually. So special. But do you know what's really special is the view from that deck. This was my favourite spot at River Lodge. And this might be a big statement to make. This very quickly became one of my favourite places on earth. There's a few that I've got on my shortlist, but this spot is absolutely one of them. The peace and the tranquility, I cannot get across just how amazing it was. And that view, and it didn't even matter, to be honest, whether there were animals there or not, which there quite often, and yeah, for the most part there were. Whether it was the baboons having a bit of a scrap in the trees opposite, whether it was the kudu just strolling through, hippos coming out of the water and going for a feed at night, and the elephants. Those elephants, I tell you what, when it comes to the animals out in the bush, the big cats get top billing, don't they? And I know that to people that grow up in this part of the world, elephants are probably like cows are here in the UK, but I could watch them all day. No doubt my favourite animal. They are such incredible, majestic is the word, isn't it? And they really are. So the fact that at River Lodge there was this spot where the elephants were regular visitors and you could just sit and see scenes like this, unreal. And also what blew my mind as well is that like the day before I was on the high veld, it was getting a bit chilly, the dry air, the cities, and then suddenly you were out in the middle of nowhere with elephants in the heat, just having a drink right in front of you. And then a couple of days after this, and I'd be on the east coast in the green, lush, rolling hills of KwaZulu-Natal, and down on the coast just north of Durban. Incredible country. So yeah, the deck at River Lodge. I spent a lot of time there, and not just sat watching the world go by and the animals. I spent a lot of time there eating the food. So much food. Kudu steak was my favourite. Seeing the kudu stroll by and then eating one later that evening, you knew it was fresh. Steak fillets, oh my goodness. The meat, I've talked about it so much, I don't need to go on. The meat, mwah, chef's kiss. And there was quite a nice spot to go and digest all of that food as well. Back in my tent. Now it's weird calling it a tent because it doesn't seem to do it justice. I suppose it is a tent. All that separates you from the open bush is a bit of canvas. So technically a tent, but taking the serenity and peace to a whole nother level. Just laying on the balcony there, all sorts of visitors would just come and stroll through your front garden. Although it's not really right to call it your front garden, because absolutely I was on their patch. This was their home, and I was just very, very privileged and fortunate to be able to sit and watch them go about their business. So yeah, all sorts of animals would come and stroll by through the day. Same at night. I didn't see them, but I heard hippos as they went by. I heard elephants felling the trees around me. One morning I opened the door to see a giraffe literally touching distance in front of me, just eating from the tree out the front. I think my favourite visitors though were the monkeys who lived just above. So let me get to the, and pun intended, let me get to the meat of the activities then at River Lodge. So you have game drives where you go out in a vehicle with a guide and a spotter, experts, guys that have grown up on the land, know how it moves, know where the animals are, what they're up to, and you go out early in the morning. So you'd get up 5:30 a.m, have a quick coffee before you leave at 6, out for 3 hours, chill through the day, and then you go out again in the afternoon so that you get sunrise and sunset out in the bush. The light at those times of day is incredible. It really is, and it's actually led to a bit of a change in my life since I've left the bush and come back to the UK. I now get up earlier in the mornings than I ever did, and I'll sit there in the back garden getting the first bit of sun on my face with a cup of coffee instead of just scrolling through my phone like I would have done. It's had a bit of a lasting impact. Is that a bit woo-woo to admit that? Well, I'm admitting it. My favourite, I have to say, was the afternoon drive, sunset. Some of the places that the guides would take us to, just for in the middle of your little tour around seeing some animals, you'd stop and we'd have a drink and a snack as the sun is going down, and those little sundowner drinks, some of my favourite moments, particularly the one where we stopped and I was stood just having a lovely evening drink as the sun was going down with hippos just maybe a matter of meters off of the edge of the water from where I was. And see if you can spot the moment that I thought for a second a hippo might be coming my way. Getting kind of close. I'll take a step for you. Is it going back? Going back. So quite often trips to the bush are self-drive. People drive their own car or they get a guided vehicle drive, but they have to stay on the tarmac roads. I think that's the case for most of Kruger, which is great actually, and I did that in Mfolozi in KwaZulu-Natal, and I saw the big five there, and actually I think the lion sightings were better there than they were in the Timbavati private game reserve, but it was incredible. When I was staying at Simbavati, it was different there because the guides could take you off-road. They could take you wherever they wanted, and they did. So go for it. Go for it, CJ, we're fine. All fine. And because they're also expert trackers as well, they knew where to go, when to go, and as a result just saw some incredible sights. I feel very, very fortunate. Oh my word, when a lion stares you in the eye, that's something, isn't it? Crikey. Okay. It's the circle of life. I could quite happily bore you with all of it, but I won't do that. I'll just share with you a couple of highlights. Now, every South African that I've spoken to about my trip get really excited when I tell them I saw African wild dogs. And every guide that I've spoken to, when I ask them what their favourite animal in the bush is, they all say African wild dogs. They have a very special place in the hearts of people across Africa, and I feel very lucky that I saw some, which is a very rare thing to do. I saw some on my first full day in the bush. Now, you don't really hear people in the UK anyway talking about African wild dogs. Certainly not one that people talk about with the excitement that people in Africa do. One time when I've heard African wild dogs being spoken about recently though, was in Chasing the Sun 2 episode 3, which was covering South Africa's quarter-final match against France. And Rassie Erasmus, well, I'll play you the clip.
40 minutes of drama remain.
Now, when I saw that, I assumed what Rassie Erasmus meant is that he wanted his players to be crazed, to be wild, to go out and insanely just go and hammer the opposition. But what I learned from talking to CJ, the guide, I asked him a lot of questions while we were sat watching the wild dogs, which we did for quite a long time. And I learned what Rassie Erasmus really meant, because African wild dogs are amazing creatures. First and foremost, they're the most successful killer in the bush. 7 out of 10 times they attempt to kill, they make a kill, and that is because of the way that they work together. They're a pack animal, and everyone in that pack has a role, and they all have to execute, and that is what Rassie Erasmus was talking about. When you think of the fact Oxenche comes off the bench and wins important scrum penalties, Quacker Smith has a very specific role for 20 minutes for South Africa, or did in that World Cup. That's what Rassie Erasmus was talking about. Individuals doing their job as part of the collective. What's more, African wild dogs are relentless. They never ever stop. They will outrun their prey. They'll keep going and keep going and keep going, and they don't go and try and force their prey to the deck. They'll run them and run them and run them until they have no energy left to give, and then they make their kill. And that's what Rassie Erasmus meant in that quarter-final as well. And when you look back at the game against France, that is what South Africa did. They soaked everything up and then just had that little bit more desire to get them across the line by a single point. And then African wild dogs, once they have made their kill, because they're not that big, they have to eat quickly before something bigger comes and steals their dinner. So they will eat that animal while it's still alive. They are ruthless when they need to be. And that is what Rassie Erasmus meant. So not having known much about African wild dogs before I was there, they are also, like all of the guides I spoke to, now one of my favourite animals, no doubt. And finally, let me tell you about the leopards, because I was very lucky, not just to see a leopard, but to see several. In fact, I saw the same leopard on the first game drive that I saw on the last one, a large fully grown male. On the evening drive the following day, I saw a female leopard. And then the following evening, I saw a different female leopard, which clearly wasn't nearly as good a hunter as the fully grown male that I'd seen a day or two before, because this one was desperately trying to get to a squirrel on top of the tree. It was clearly getting quite hungry and getting quite desperate. And then on the morning drive, my final one before I would be leaving to head back to Pretoria for the test match, and I saw that male leopard once again, and he'd made another kill, another impala, but we were actually tracking lion at the time. So CJ, the guide, was desperate to find the pride of lions that had just arrived on the Timbavati Reserve. And it's amazing watching these guys track. The skills that have been passed down through the generations for hundreds, thousands of years, still being used today. And CJ was getting closer and closer, like a detective, to finding these lions, when he, just on a stroll off into the bush, he came across a freshly killed impala and saw what he was pretty sure was a leopard running off into the bush. So he came back to the vehicle and said, we'll be back here in half an hour. And we were. And CJ, like I say, could take us wherever he wanted, and he took us off-road, serious driving skills, to get us this close to this male leopard. What a way to finish my first ever trip to the African bush. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My word. Wow. Just an incredible animal. Now, I had a GoPro with me with this extendable arm thing, and I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll extend the arm out the side of the vehicle so that I can get like a ground level shot, do some Martin Scorsese stuff with this leopard. And I instantly regretted that choice because, well, there's a reason why you're told to keep your arms inside the vehicle and not to stand up. Because when an animal looks at the vehicle, it sees a vehicle. And as soon as you stand up or put your arm out, it can suddenly then spot that you're an individual separate from the vehicle. And that's what happened with me. The leopard clocked me. CJ, my guide, clocked that the leopard had seen me. And as you can hear, told me to stop it. And you can hear, I was quite nervous.
Looking at you, don't do that.
Yeah, no, okay. I don't want to do that.
Oh gosh.
See, am I alright?
CJ, are you okay?
Should I look away or?
Now you've seen you.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Okay. Thank you.
That's why they say don't put things outside the vehicle.
I see. Right, yeah.
Oh jeez. Oh dear.
You will go. When I thought like it like walk or fish.
I think it likes the camera. The like.
If I'm honest, I absolutely bricked it in that moment. I was terrified for a second. When you've got a leopard, like what we're talking, 10 feet away from me, locking eyes on me, seeing me as a person inside a car, not as the car itself, I was a little bit nervous. I did later ask CJ if he had a gun with him, and he said no knife, no guns. He just relies on his own wits and experience, and he got us out of the situation by just moving the vehicle a little bit away, and it was yeah, very much lesson learned. And please, when you do go, don't make that mistake again. I certainly won't be. The whole thing, the whole time at River Lodge, incredible, absolutely amazing experience. The only downside is that I didn't have anyone to share that experience with. And you know, you've probably, I don't know, if you've been, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't been and you've had someone showing you pictures and videos and stuff and trying to describe it, you'll know as well. It just does not do it justice. And I need to take my family back there because I want to share it with them. It was incredible. It's one of those things where I was very conscious at the time. This might be a once in a lifetime experience. I really hope it's not once in a lifetime, but I had the best time. And again, to think that a day before I was up on the high veld and a couple of days later I'd be down by the coast and in the mountains in KwaZulu-Natal. What a country. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that little journey into the bush with me. My first trip there. If you do enjoy the content on the channel, rugby or otherwise, then yeah, get stuck in the comments down below, give the video a thumbs up and hit subscribe. And if you enjoy this, then yeah, let me know. Because I'll do more of it. I want to get under the skin of the sport that we love, but I want to get under the skin of the countries who play the sport that we love as well. So I'll do more of this too. If you want, let me know. See you on the next video.